here tonight. Hopefully we'll get through the meeting pretty quick, being that we've done some different things with the reports. Before we get into regular club business, we have a special presentation we'd like to talk about first. The PCARS Board of Directors met here at the last meeting, and we've nominated the latest life member of the club, Jim Hagan, who's here with us tonight. His call sign is November 4 Alpha Alpha. And I'm going to let Dennis talk a little bit about him before we call for the vote to officially put him in office there.
Jim, I can talk about you in front of you. Jim has been a very long member of PCARS. As a matter of fact, he was one of the charter members. He also has related what the first Hamfest was like. They barely broke even, but it's laid the groundwork for next year, and it has been bigger and better ever since. He has been overlooked for years to nominate him for life membership, and I hope you'll agree with the board of directors on that. He's certainly contributed. He's been president once. He's been He's been president twice, and he's been secretary as far as I can tell, and maybe he's done some other things somewhere along the way. But he's always been open to helping other hands and giving advice and getting up to UHF and beyond.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to formally make this official. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to call for a nomination in a second. Vince, would you like to make a nomination or
I'd like to nominate
motion?
Jim Hagan and then 4AA for life membership.
Okay, we have a second. Ed is going to second it.
Special, Ed. Special. Well, you know, you're up there special in so many ways.
Okay, all in favor of making Jim Hagan our latest life member, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Congratulations, Jim. Come on up, Jim. We got something here for you. All right. We got this nice plaque. Our shirt guy made. Come right here on this side of me, right here. Yeah. Our shirt guy made here, Bruce. And go ahead and present that to you there. Hold it up there. Okay. All right. There you go, Jim. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Dennis is not going to let him get off that easy. He's going to talk to Jim there for just a minute here. Watch the cord there. I have a small shorter chair. Can you get up on that?
Yeah.
Here.
I think.
All right. There you go. Open mic. Got it? Yep.
Okay. I've been a member of this organization from before it started. It was in 1962. I don't think we had 10 active members at that time and no meeting place. Each member took their turn and we met in the living room of the homes of various members. Some of the early members were Ted Woodbury, Tedco, you know, and Gene Starr, and a couple others. I got a list of them here. Anybody wants to see it. Most of them are no longer here, either deceased or no longer living in Florida. Melbourne was nothing back then. There was nothing here. So ham radio was the only way out. I came from northern New Jersey when I came down here against my parents' wishes. I worked at the Space Center up and down range for a number of years before I resided continuously here in 1960. So it's been an interesting number of years, seeing how the place grows, how the club grew. Like I said, I don't think we had 10 members back in those days, and they weren't always at the meetings. Everybody's living room is what it was. Any questions? Anything you want to know? No? Well?
I have a story.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember this. Back in 1986, I was working at Harris, and I had a security guy come up to me, and he said, it was 86, 85, he said, you know, I was a ham. And he said, my wife and I were out walking on the beach, and there was this guy with like this microwave dish or something. He was in the bushes swatting mosquitoes, And we asked him what he was doing. He said he was trying to set some record for this very high, super high frequency contact that he was shooting. Where were you shooting? Up at the Cape, maybe?
Yeah, it was 10 gigahertz.
Okay. And I've always, that's the one story I related that to him. I said, you're not going to believe this, the security guys are looking for you, man.
Actually, they weren't. I had a hard time explaining to them what I was doing. That's not the first encounter like that.
Yeah, was the club name always PCARS, or when did that happen?
I
never heard the story on that.
believe it was unofficially PCARS. In the beginning, we didn't have any secretary or president, didn't take any notes for the meeting or anything else. It was pretty crude. But it got us where we are today. And the first Hamfest was proposed by Gene Starr, and I thought, man, this is a crazy idea. A small outfit like this has no business on a Hamfest, and the expense would have been the rent for the Melbourne Civic Auditorium would have been beyond our reach, but fortunately we made just enough to cover it. The following year the Hamfest grew quite a bit, and it continued to grow until it became what it is today. No trouble paying the expenses. Yeah.
So you're saying the very first one was at the Melbourne Auditorium as well?
Yes, it was, and we didn't take up all 4 walls inside. The main floor was totally empty, and we were lined up along the walls.
Yeah.
That was it. Anybody else?
What was your first rig?
My first rig was a home-built 6L6 crystal oscillator, maybe 4 or 5 watts output on 75, 80 meters. That was what I had. Later on, I had a Heathkit tour for a number of years. Still have it, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
Still works too.
Wow.
It hasn't been used in years.
I think Don's got a question back there.
Okay.
Hey Jim, I remember my first meeting I attended, it was at the bank building on the corner of 192 and US 1.
Yeah, that's right.
We moved from there over to the Red Cross building.
Yep.
Soon thereafter.
That's right. That's right. I remember that vaguely. That's been 60 years ago. Anything else? No, guess not. Oh, you got a question.
Yeah, Jim, are there any photos from back then?
Any what?
Pictures?
I don't know. Probably were, but I can't say for sure.
It may be dead. Try it.
Maybe dead. No, not when I talk. It's not dead. I sent you a photo here a while back. It was a newspaper clipping, and I do have all the albums that were in the club trailer, and I'm trying to scan them. I don't recall any of Jim in there in particular, but they were all in the move process when we built the new station. But there was a newspaper clipping, Dan, I sent you when you were a newsletter editor, and it was Ted Woodbury and Marv Flynn.
Yeah.
President and vice president. There was a lady that was the secretary, and I don't remember who the treasurer was. And these guys looked as young as the youngest person in this room, if there's anybody such an age here. Like this guy, really young. Right here. Looked really, really young. Crew cuts and a whole bit. And I think that got published in the newsletter. Didn't you put that in?
I think I did.
Well, if not, I've got that one of these days. But that's some pictures. And I still have to go through the rest of the album to see what's in there.
I think I was 18 at the time.
All right. Ed? Did hams wear ties and jackets?
No.
Where'd you get that idea?
I don't think we ever did. Yeah.
Just putting in perspective, we talked about the first ham test. We're coming up, I believe, on number 59 this year.
That's right. Yeah, like I said, you know, the first one we barely occupied all 4 walls of the Civic Center, and the main floor was totally empty. I couldn't tell you how many people were there. There may be a record of it somewhere. We weren't good at keeping records in those days.
Anybody else?
Well, let me tell you one more thing. I had lunch with Jim Friday. He and I go out to lunch once every several months, sometimes. And I sat down and took 2 pages of notes in a steno notebook. And so what I hope to do is write them up, have him confirm that I haven't mangled something too badly, and then I'm going to give it to Jim and see if we can get it published in the newsletter. So you've just gotten a brief glimpse of what he has to, what he's observed over the last so many years. And I'll take what I got Friday and put it in the newsletter for you. But thank you very much.
That'll be interesting. He does have a lot of information. Anybody else? Yep.
What, a good thing to do with that would be to put it on a page on the website.
Good idea.
Anybody else? Scott? Has the Handfest been a continuous operation since then, every year?
Yes, I believe it has.
1 year it missed.
1 year we
It
did.
did.
Hurricane.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about
It's
that.
been-
Auditorium was damaged.
Yep.
But I really did think that it was silly to have the Ham Fest because we were so small. Vero Beach had one, and I think Gene got the idea there that we should have a Ham Fest, and we just barely made it.
But you did. Thank you
We
very
did.
much.
We did.
Anyway, here's Jan.
Thank you, Dennis. And well, as he said, I do activations in Parks on the Air, and we have had some antenna projects here in the past. Don and I headed up a couple of them. We did a couple of builds of an antenna, a 5-band vertical, a compact vertical dipole called the FB5, and we did 2 runs, and then we made like 40 of those things all in all. They're still floating around, and that's what I started out doing my portable operations with. And then he has also come up with the FB3, which is a 3-band, 40, 30, and 20, and I've used that too. The drawback is that I love the FB3. Worked great when I got into this. I started doing the Parks on the Air. W1IP's not here tonight, but he got us into this. He invited any of us who wanted to go down to a park back in April of 2021, and about a half a dozen of us went down there, and we activated that park and got signed up on Parks on the Air, and we really had a good time. I left for the summer, and I took my FB5 and my FB3 with me, went out west. We spent that summer in Colorado, and I started activating parks. But the problem, the FB3 is the one I preferred, but as you know, it's 15 to 17 feet tall and has a top hat and a capacitive bottom, and so it's not easy for one person to get out, get put up, and get guide and everything. And when we came back that fall, Paul got another group. He did another one of these activations where we all went to Three Forks, and I was over there setting up my antenna, and somebody was helping me. And he's over there, and he put this pole up just like that one there, and ran this wire out, and he was on the air making contacts, and we were still putting up the antenna. I think it was Waller and I were putting the antenna up. We were still working on getting the antenna up, and he'd probably had his 10 contacts. Well, since that, I've activated over 120 some parks in 17 states. I've done getting close to 300 activations. When I got my license, I was a comm technician in the Air Force, and was stationed with the 82nd Airborne in the mid-60s on Fort Bragg, and we went out and did deployments, and that's what we did. So my roots go back to comm when you went out in the field and you set it up and you made it work. And I've always loved that part of the hobby. So this kind of fit into what I like to do. In here, this is a picture of my typical setup. That's my truck with the pole that I use here. We use these fiberglass poles. The MFJ makes them, and we found other ones that make them. These are 31 or 33 feet tall. And so that's what I like to get out and set up. And I've got, I just looked today, I'm up to 30,600 contacts on Parks on the Air right now. And about 30,000 of those have been on one of these antennas, so they work. and I love it. So with that, we'll go get into this. And I did some research online, got some information, and some of this came from a presentation that I liked that a guy did, or parts of it anyway. The half-wave antenna. You know, a lot of us. My first antenna was a dipole, half-wave dipole of 20 meters, 33 feet long. Dipole meaning you fed it in the middle, and it went out both ways. Easy to build and easy to make. So that was. There are different kinds. So if you feed it in the middle, it's a dipole. It's got 72 ohms, and it's strictly pretty much for one band. The Radio Works, a few years back, started making and selling a lot of the off-center fed. The off-center fed antennas, you feed them about 30% from one end to the other. The impedance there is about 200 ohms, so you can match it with a 4-to-1 unum. And it works quite well. And it does allow you, I've got one that was made in Germany, it's a Fitzel. And I used to take that thing out. It worked very well also, not up very high. We'd go camping with the scouts, and I'd get it up, say, 20 feet, and get on 20 meters or 15 meters. And it was a 40-meter one, but it could work multiple bands. And I'd be surprised where I'd work with that thing. So those work pretty well, too. Now, the end-fed half-wave, has a really high impedance at the feed point, somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 ohms. So it requires a high impedance match. Well, in this case, most people use a 49-to-1 or a 64-to-1 unum, and they work quite well. You typically have got low SWR. I'll show you, some of the SWR graphs and all in a little bit. So what makes them nice is that you can pretty easily put them up anywhere. I've made them, I usually run it in a sloper type way of mounting it, where I'll mount, this is a drive-on mount here. I usually use this in the back of my truck, but I have a drive-on now too. And then this is where the feed point is. I just hang the ballon on here and put it in the ground and run it down as a sloper. And it works out quite well. And I have been able to use it. You'll see some pictures later on. The funny thing you can do is a flat top. I've run it up, across, and down in different directions. And it works pretty good. Another thing that's nice is you don't have to worry about hanging up a feed line up in the air like you do with a dipole or an off-center fed or one of the other antennas. It's fed close to the ground, so I just run the coax across the ground. Now, you don't really need a ground system. Now, the first one I built, and the kit from ARRL and all, it has a ground lug so you can put a counterpoise on it. The first one I built, I put the counterpoise on. I tried it with, I tried it without, and I didn't see much difference, because if you use a length of coax that's greater than the length of the antenna, it will act as the counterpoise. So typically I use a minimum of, for the 40 meter, I use a minimum of 75 feet of coax. The antenna is like 66 feet long, 65, 66 feet. And that way it acts as a counterpoise. Sometimes I use a line isolator. I carry that with me. I use that at the radio, but I don't always do that. If it's convenient, I do. Typically, if I'm operating in the truck with the radio and all in the truck, I'll stick it on there. If I'm out at a table or something, I might not. I haven't found that it made much difference one way or the other on the SWR. So if you make an 80 meter one, if you start doing the math, you get multiples of it that fall on the other bands, okay? So I'll show you that in a second. Another thing is it's grounded at DC, so you don't have any static buildup. And you can make shorter versions too. If you want to make one for 20 meters, you can make a short one for 20 meters. It'd be 33 feet. So here here is basically how it works. If you made an 80-meter one, if you look at the chart over there, you multiply it times 1 times 2, you see where it falls in the other bands. And so without a lot of, on most bands it'll fall right in the band. On others, without a lot of tuning, typically you can use a tuner and work all of those bands with it. I use the 40 meter strictly because of having room, when you're going out and setting up portable. 130 some feet long is a pretty long antenna to want to put up just to get on the air. So we can still, if you look at cut it for say like 7100, and then you look at how it rolls up to the other bands, you can see that it works quite well. Okay. Now, one of the things about, I kind of glanced over it, but back there in the beginning, I showed that, on the end fed, it has a high voltage, at the feed point, it's high voltage, low current. And so you have got to have a core that will handle that on the ferrite, on the toroid core that you use. Typically, most of them are type 53 or 43 or 52. I use a type 43 on the ones that I have built, and it will do the whole band. So the core is quite important. Now, ARRL makes a kit that you can get, and I looked at the kit, and I had started to do that. When I saw that antenna that Paul brought out there, I started doing some research online. He said he had built the ARRL kit, is what he did. And I looked at doing that, and the kit's like $80, and then shipping and everything. I said, gee, I'm going to have about $100 in this thing. And I started looking online and looking for other sources of those things. Well, one of the first ones I found was a small one on eBay that said, not on Amazon, that said it was good for 100 watts. So I said, well, I'll try that. But before we get into that, let me go back to this. So here is how let me get my pointer here. Okay, the primary, the red wires are your primary. They're twisted together, and you'll see this when I pass this around. They're twisted together, and with the secondary, this part goes to ground. This goes to the center of your coax, and you use 100 picofarad capacitor, very high voltage rating on that. And then this blue wire is the secondary of the unum. Okay, and I have found a source of them on eBay. They came from I took a chance and ordered one from a guy in France. It was a 400 average, 500 watt peak core, and I said, well, I'm going to give it a try. I bought one of these first, and what I found is that it got hot because I like to run. When they say 100 watts, I run 100 watts CW. Well, it doesn't like 100 watts CW. It'll take maybe 30 watts FT8 or 50 watts CW. You can use more than that phone. But for a lot of people, one of these, this was $30 on Amazon when I first got it. This is one I just bought recently just to bring for a show, and I'm gonna do some experimenting with it. But it's down to $21 now on Amazon. And for a lot of people, I think that Walter had one. I think you still have one, and uses it.
I fell apart. I got to rebuild.
Yeah, that's the problem. They're made in China, and what I did to this one, two things I did. I drilled a couple holes. One of the articles I read said that if you drill a couple 1/16 inch holes in the bottom, it gives it enough ventilation for the heat to escape. So I went big. I drilled two 30-second holes in there. So I went up another 30 seconds. And the other thing I didn't like, I had trouble with these connectors. They put these cheap connectors on there, and it was coming loose. So I took some epoxy and I epoxied the mine was already loose. I tightened it down good. I put some epoxy in there so the thing's going to stay in place. I'll just let you guys pass this thing around. Hi, boy. How you doing? Yeah. And let's see. So, yeah. So that's yes. So,
for those of us that don't know everything,
yeah.
what is this type 83?
Oh, that is what the toroid is made out of. Okay, that's the material, the permeability of the core of that toroid. Okay, different ones are made for different things. Some are made to use as a choke, and the ones that, for example, the ones that Clyde would use to make a common mode choke would not be the same core that you would use to build something like this that will take that high voltage. Okay. It's the permeability of the material that's used to make the core. And the one that, the same type material that the ARRL uses and the other author that I use some of the material from recommended is the same one that the guy is using that builds the cores the units that I get that I order from France. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not speaking into this thing enough. I'm sorry. I got to, huh? Yeah, I need to get my key out. You guys. Well, that's another story. You know, we did the FQP last week, and that's another story. We're used to the keys. Okay. Okay. So this basically that showed you kind of how it's wound. This is the specs on the cores that I'm using, or I should say not just the cores, but the Unums, the 49-to-1s that I am using that I order. And these are reasonable and the reason I get them because they're $29 a piece already built. And so I'm thinking, why do I want to get this thing and have to wind it and build it when I can buy it already built? And so, the ARRL kit's 250 watts. These are 500 watts. So I went with this. That's just what comes with it. This is what it looks like. What I like about it is they've got the Teflon coated wire and everything, and it comes with a 40 kilovolt 100 picofarad capacitor. And so it comes in two ways. You can either get it the 500 watt, which comes all sealed in a box, or the heavier has two cores for the kilowatt unit, and these are like these are $38 plus the shipping and all. So it's about $6 or $7 for the shipping and other stuff each. So I've been happy with that. Here's what they look like. And I mentioned this one that's going on around. Okay. And as I said, this one worked well, and I made a couple mods to it, and I'm actually going to try that one out again and see what kind of luck I have with it. Keep it as a spare and one to experiment with. One of the things I found is, regardless of the size wire that I use, they all come out pretty close to the with the cores that the units that I'm using. I can just about cut it and know what it's going to be when I cut it to the frequency.
Check your mic.
Do I need a switch? Do I need to switch mics or something? This one seems to go up and down. Okay, how's this? That's a little better, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry you guys couldn't hear me. Okay. So this is a comparison of the two. This was my first one I built, and I've kept it. This is my quick and easy. Throw it up and go out and put it up quick, and it works well. You can pass it around and see how it works. And then I decided to go ahead and build them waterproof too, because I wanted to leave them outside. And this is the way I test them. What I do is I put my pole up in the backyard, and to tune these things, I have a place I mount the pole, and run it. I used to use an antenna analyzer to trim it. I usually cut the wire at about 66 feet, and I end up trimming a few inches off of it and get it trimmed down to somewhere around, usually I trim them about 7,100 or maybe even a little bit lower because I work mostly CW, but it'll work the whole band, and then it works the other bands. I've got some photos later of the SWR readings. So this works fine with a sloper, and I've been very happy with it. And then I decided to, I went and I looked at, when I bought the units and wanted to put one in a box, so what I did is I went and watched the ARRL, they have a kit building video on YouTube. So I went and watched how they built it on YouTube. Of course, they were winding it and everything. But they put you'll notice that they have there's a plastic, they had a mount in there. So I went and I put the mount in there and I zip tied it on there and everything, and went to a lot of extra work. I put the ground lug on, and I tested this one with the counterpoise, without the counterpoise, and all that kind of stuff, and found that didn't really make much difference. And I said, boy, this wire is so stiff I can hardly get it bent into place to put it in there, so why am I anchoring it down? So every one that I built after that, I just put it in the box and soldered the thing in there, and it stays in place. And I've had a couple of them. I've had a couple of them where I beat them up enough, dropped them, and all that. I've broke the solder connector right there, but I've been able to just fix those and get them back going. So that's I found these boxes at Home Depot. They're like $12 for a waterproof box. They look like about the same size that they were using on the videos. Other ones would probably work, but those work. And here's this is just typically how I install it. This one is going from the hitch mount on the back of my truck down to the ground, and then coax running back to it. This is a local part. This one's out where we were camping, and I have a hitch mount on the back of my travel trailer, so I put the hitch mount up there and then run it. Now, here's the interesting thing. You're going to see some antenna patterns. I have a friend that ran this through EasyNet, and the way that you slope the antenna and point it is the directivity of the antenna. There is directivity on this antenna and gain on it in the direction that you point it. So I try to, typically what I do is point it north. When you're in Florida, you point it north, and I get over into Europe, and I get out to the Midwest and even out west. So that's how we set it up. Here are some simple some photos of installations. I use my the drive-on mount with my wife's car. That's a $29 flagpole mount from Amazon. However, it's very flimsy, and I put if you got something, wood would probably work, but if I put aluminum plate on the bottom of it, so it makes it nice and solid. And it's a little over 3 inches in diameter, so it's plenty big to fit any of the poles in, and that worked quite well. And for the back of the trunk, my truck hinge mount, the only problem with this particular model, it's real easy to drive off and leave it.
Yeah.
With my trunk mount on the back of my truck, I can't put the stuff in the back of the truck until I know that one of these days I'm going to drop that tailgate on top of this thing and put a big gouge in my tailgate, but I haven't yet. But I have to take it off to put everything in the truck, so I can't forget it that way. But those work good, and this size is just over 2 inches, so it's just big enough to fit that pole in. And I did see one today on Amazon that's 3.5 inches, and it's like $29. So I'm thinking of ordering another one to give it a try. Can't beat that. We've gone out to Tim Goodwin has this bird watching tower. We've mounted we strapped it to the pole there on the tower. I have found this is kind of typically what it looks like when we go out and set up out and operate out in one of the parks. I have a case I carry my IC 7300 in, and an ammo case that I carry my two 20 amp hour lithium ion batteries in that I have paralleled. And other things that I've done is this was a recent 2-night stay that we did up at Stephen Foster State Park, where back over on where that table is over there was this grill. And so I didn't have a lot of room in the campground, so I ran this pole up here, and I ran it from over there over to my other pole, which is on the back of the camper, and then back down over here. And I couldn't, and it was kind of pointed north. You know, it went that way, and then it went back this way, and I couldn't believe it. We were there. I made 611 contacts there in just operating voice and CW and FT8, not operating full time. And so you can really, I've run it different directions and flat topped it and done different things, and it gets out, and the SWR is always the same. So that works good. At home I have that's a 1 kW one there I have mounted on my aluminum tower, and it's running up to a tree back in the preserve that has a rope over the top of it. So, any questions so far? Yes, Dan.
You know, if that thing is a 40-meter
Yes.
pathway,
Yes.
you could just slightly modify your feed point and turn it into an 80-meter quarter wave without ground system. What you do is around 2 or 3 ground wires.
Yeah.
An 80-meter vertical.
Or you know what you can do? You can wind yourself a little coil like this and hang about 11 feet of wire on the bottom of it, and you can work 80 meters with it. You right up on that pole. This is light enough that it'll fit on that pole, and this is one that Steve, K4AOQ, made a couple of these for Walter and I. And that's another thing I was going to mention to you. You can add 80 meters by just doing a coil like this. It's very narrow on 80 meters. So for Steve, K4AOQ, you know he works FT8 with his hearing problem. He works FT8. So his is cut for, 3073, for the FT8 frequency there. I've got it so that I can barely work CW and FT8, on 80 meters with it.
But you could make it broader.
Yeah.
Broader band just by changing it, the connection to the base.
Uh-huh.
And you've got a quarter wave vertical for 80 meters. That would work rock solid.
You've got a number of different options that way. Another thing I was going to show you that I carry with me all the time, these are called gear ties. And you'll notice in that photo there, I put the little mount there on the ground, and you'll notice one of these tied there and one of these tied there. I've used these things you can get them at Home Depot, and I got a pack of 6 of they're like 32 inches long, and you can tie them together. I've used bungee cords, but I swear the wind comes up and the bungee cords gets that thing going, and the next thing you know, your antenna's on the ground. But I've had good luck with these. Yes?
A small piece of double-sided Velcro
Uh-huh.
works really well as well.
Probably would. These are nice and long, so sometimes I need that. Okay. Yes? Oh, sure. Yeah. It's 52 or 53 turns on a 2-inch
Medicine bottle.
Yeah, that's a, yeah.
That's what it was. That's what he built.
Yeah, and I've got at home. I'm going to build a heavier duty one. What happened to that one? The reason the wire's off the bottom is because I had it up and the wind was blowing and it cut it off when it broke it off. So I'm going to build a heavier duty one on a piece of PVC pipe.
And if you're really, really lucky, and it's a good day, it'll do 160. But you have to be really lucky. I've gotten it to do 160 at the house like 3 or 4 times. It's nothing to write home about, but it worked. But you have to be lucky.
So let's take a look at, if you wonder, does it, excuse me, I went backwards. Does it really work? Okay. Well, here are, this is one that I set up at the house, and this is my rig in the house. And the 7300, it's got the SWR check. You can do it. So this is 120 kilohertz across here. The high end where you see the yellow thing there, that's 7125, and so you see it sloping down like that. And this one is flat then on up into the phone part of the band. And then you double that, and here it is. This is the top end of 20 meter phone. The rest of it, you got a little bit down at the bottom. You got a little bit of SWR, but then the rest up to the top of the band is flat. 21, you can see there's a little SWR down there. The line there is the 1.5 to 1 SWR. 28, and I'm not sure exactly why this was up. Well, it's 1.5 there, but with the tuner that comes right out. Here's an interesting thing though. 6 meters. This thing will actually tune. I was up at Cape Canaveral one day operating, and I said, oh, I'm going to try it on 6 meters because 6 meters was open. I made a ton of contacts on 6 meters with it. Just put the tuner in there, and it worked great. When you call CQ POTA, you get a lot of people. It's become a very popular mode. What about the work bands? The work bands, it's not made to work on the work bands. Sometimes on a good day, I can get it to work on 17 meters. You can see it's almost 3 to 1 here. Kind of depends on how did I drag the coax out? Did I drag enough out? Did I wiggle it enough? Anyway, but with a tuner, it tones it right down. 12 meters is much easier. It gets typically under 2 to 1 on 12 meters with it, and of course with the tuner you can just take that right out. Now, I had a friend. We were out in Texas, and he modeled the antenna for me with it in a sloper mode at 33 feet at the top and 3 feet off the ground at the bottom. So these are some of the results of this is 40 meters, okay? So this is the directivity, which is pretty much, all to the direction. Remember the feed point is down here, and the pole's back here, so it's going down like that. Here, as you would expect, it's got a high angle of high angle radiation, but it's got the outer ring there is 4 dBi, and so if you look at that, if you look at that, hang on a second. Yeah, so at about at 30 degrees, you're down 3 dB. This is 4.6. It's 4.66 dB. It's hard to read those numbers up there. So you've still got gain of 1.66 dBi at 30 degree angle of takeoff. Not going to work. Well, I say you're not going to work a lot of DX. Remember that installation I showed you where I had the antenna up and crossed and then back down again? Well, there were for 2 nights. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning and put it on 40 meters FT8 with 100 watts because I had the power supply in the camper, and almost back to back, I worked Australia and Japan. So I was very surprised and happily surprised that it got out that good on 40 meters. As you get into 20 meters and 17 meters, you get into cardioid type of parameter there, but you're still getting gain out here, and you're getting a lower angle of takeoff there. So you've got this again is the direct. In the back, you're starting to get these off the back too, but as you notice, it's a very high angle of radiation. As you move up in the bands, 15 meters and 12 meters, you get a nicer, more gain with a lower angle of elevation, lower takeoff angle there, which you want if you're working DX with it. And 10 meters and 6 meters. So I guess the main thing to take from the guy who ran the EasyNeck model for me was quite surprised. Actually, he himself did a lot of antenna experimenting and building, and he was actually quite surprised at the amount of gain that it had with it in that sloper. So just a few wrap-up things, construction things that I've learned that I think are nice. If I were going to build one, I don't think it can beat $34 for the Unum already put together and tested and with the capacitor and everything. Like I say, I think I built about 10 of these so far, and I don't build them to make any money. I just build them because I've had friends that wanted them. Kind of depends on what you've got in your junk box as to how much it costs you overall. I like these mounts here. I haven't found a better one online. If I could find one online cheaper, better, I would get another one. I use one of the things I didn't like about the unit, the Japanese or Chinese unit, is that it's not stainless, so they rust up, and you can't leave them out. I like the stainless hardware. Paul, W1IP, ran across the silicone wire. You'll notice that one you're passing around there has got, that's silicone wire, and it doesn't kink up. And this is number 16 wire on this one. It's a little bit heavier. It's actually thinner because of the way it's made, but this is a 16 wire. I like that. That's very nice for a portable antenna. Let's see. You can add if you want. I use the counterpoise. I use RG8X. I have a roll of 75 and a roll of 100 that I take with me. You can add the 80 meters if you want. And you'll notice on the construction of that one coming around, or this one here, I use eye connectors. I use a strain relief where you at the feed point, so that, because initially I was having trouble with my wires breaking where I had put the connectors and stuff on. So I learned to put put some good heat shrink over it and use some strain relief on it, and I haven't had any problems with that. I started drilling the little holes in it. Cost depends on what you got. Basically, you've got the cost of the balun and whatever you've got in your junk box, or Unum, I should say. So my first one, I think, cost me about, I had a roll of wire in the attic, and I had plenty of things in the junk box. So basically, the cost of the Unum was all it cost me on that first one I built. As I said, the small one, which is now $21 on Amazon, might be all you need if you're just a casual going out and operate, set up and operate. They work fine. So that, I think, that wraps it up. Open it for questions, and when we have a break, you can come up and look at the stuff we got here. We can bring
about 30 meters real quick that you could do.
Oh yeah, I was going to have you bring that. I called Steve.
I'm not out in the car, but anyway.
Okay, so what I did was, I took one of these and I says, gee, I'd like to sometimes work 30 meters. So I measured 30 meters is like 44 feet approximately and a few inches. So I took the thing and I cut the wire and tuned it for 30 meters and put 2 eyelets on it and put a little number 8 stainless bolt and nut on there just to hook them together. So if I want to work 30 meters, I just take it down and take it apart and use it for 30 meters. Another thing I've done, my brother-in-law lives out in the country, and he's a kind of a rag chewer guy. And but in the summer, 80's dead, so he had room for a full one. So I built him one for the foam part of 40 meters and up, and then I put an insulator there with a junction that he could snap together, take apart, so that in the wintertime he can let it, and then I tuned it for 80 meter phone on the other one. So in the winter he can take it down and hook it up on 80 so he can rag chew on 80, and the rest of the time, like now, when 80's dead, he can use it for 40. Yes?
I've seen that junction using Anderson power poles.
Yeah. Yeah, I use the electric, the kind you get from the electric. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I'm just curious, why do you need a counterpoint on that antenna? Because it's an end-fed device.
You don't. It uses the coax as it does have a coax. It does need a counterpoise. It does use a counterpoise.
Coax is needed for the return of
Yeah. Yeah.
that's your feed line.
Yes.
But what, how does it add to the radiation pattern of the antenna?
I don't know that. What it affects is your SWR. It affects your SWR. Yes. Yes. Because I have gone out and put like 50 feet of coax. I was short. It wasn't very far from it. Put like 50 feet on there, and my SWR was like 2 to 1 on all the bands that were higher, 2.5 to 1. I said, what's wrong? And then it dawned on me that I didn't have enough for the counterpoise. It is for the but it's because of the SWR. Mm-hmm. It's just like when these guys tune the buddy sticks and they have this counterpoise that goes out and they have to tweak it to get it just right. Yes.
Have you tried potting the Chinese anon with like liquid electrical tape?
No, I haven't tried anything to make it any more durable or anything like that. I was going to try it with the little air holes, like the guy said, and I just haven't done anything with that one yet. But I'm wanting to experiment with one. I would like to find one that would work for 30, 17 meters and 12 meters, and I haven't quite figured that one out yet. But I want to play with this antenna to see if I can. Yeah, Bruce. I've got the slides of it. I can get it from my buddy that made it for me. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I read or heard someplace that you might hold a build session.
If there are people, we've done this in the past, and like I said, we did the FB5s. We built like 20 G5 RVs one time, didn't we, Don? Remember we did those? And if there's interest in doing a club project, and you guys want to, I brought a sign-up sheet. If you want to get a group together, we could do a build up at the club station or something like that. We've done it before, and I'd be willing to help do something like that.
If you don't get enough names on that list, can you at least publish the address of the company?
Oh, yeah.
In the newsletter or something?
Sure. We can, provide that. I need that information. Oh, I'd like to, The guy that I get these from is very.
I take it he doesn't market through Amazon or something.
He's on eBay. He's on eBay. Yeah. If you search on eBay and you find a guy in France, I can send you. It's his number is HF 2000 something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. Yes.
A couple things to note. I recently moved back here from Oregon.
I
have
Good move. No.
I have a in-fed half-wave made by Nelson Antennas on eBay as well, and he puts his in an aluminum box. It survived multiple winter field days where I'm on top of the mountain in literally 0 degrees.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have given you that.
Literally in 0 degree weather, rain and snow, and so I can attest to the durability of those antennas. Also, I enjoyed doing Summits on the Air out there,
Mm-hmm.
and as many of you guys may know, ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain, and so carrying as small of an antenna as possible is helpful. And so there's a kit called out there made by K6 ARK. You can go up to 20 watts for my QRP guys, you know, the overall unit is probably the size of your finger, not including the wire. But it's an antenna that you can literally slip into your cargo pants, and you know, there's plenty of options out there. I just wanted to name a few.
Sure. Yeah, if you search, you get out and start searching the internet, and go on eBay, or just do a Google search, and you'll come up with a lot of different varieties. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you slope it for convenience, just because one you don't have to put 2 poles up, or do you get a better?
You know, well, mostly just for convenience. Quick setup. You put the I put the pole in the trunk hitch, and the trailer hitch, and start running it up and run it out. Typically, yeah. When I do other configurations, it's usually because of confinements of a campsite that happened to be in with the camper. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jan.